Hello, everyone. My name is Mason White at the University of Toronto.
I'm Lola Sheppard at the University of Waterloo.
And we're joined here by our expanded team with Kieran Roy Taylor at Lateral Office and spinning around, and Zach Jacoby. Maybe he might spin around also at University
Not
of
a wheelie
Toronto.
chair.
No spinning option. We didn't splurge for that. And we're getting together here in a Zoom room because we're obsessed with Zoom. No, because we figured one last hurrah to get together digitally would acknowledge the way in which we worked on this project predominantly. And Zach is actually at University of Toronto, which is where we were able to do some mock-ups. So we're going to share with you today some of the behind the scenes outtakes and maybe some bloopers of the This Appearance Is installation that we developed for Exhibit Columbus 2021 as part of the University Design Fellowship. And as you know, the project was really centered around ideas of games and its impact, potential impact on rethinking public space and the idea of the space of appearance or space of disappearance. And we wanted to really kind of celebrate our return to public space through a kind of game-based vision.
Yeah, the real kind of game changer for us was discovering this great lenticular film, which is used as both as diffusers, but you might remember them sort of as the stuff that cheap holograms are kind of made of. And it has this great property where the kind of closer you get to it, the more it reveals. And by kind of moving away from it, you can kind of disappear. Kind of jumping off from there, we were kind of thinking about what kind of spaces might leverage this property of it. Kind of were we thinking mazes or rooms or something like that that could really help the material kind of play out. The form that we ended up with was just kind of, working out the tectonics of it and realizing that if we kind of curved or torqued it, not only did we end up with a lot of really interesting spaces, but a lot of those could then kind of be self-supporting in a lot of ways.
Another interest of ours was how the material might perform at night and how it might take artificial light. So we, at U of T, got hold of larger sheets and mocked that up with LEDs, testing how the light would travel and the angle at which it needed to hit the lenticular film.
There's some really great effects that happen with these sort of ridges that occur in the film that really throw the light all around in a bunch of different angles. The project itself evolved a lot of sort of R&D on our end about how to figure out how the electronics come together and interface with the physical components of it, which we really sort of handled in-house here in Spaceman now at U of T, sort of rigging up one-to-ones, watching a lot of YouTube videos, figuring out how things work and how things don't work. It's pretty rewarding to get through. This is sort of our shop here in Municipal Hall at Daniels, where we ordered all our supplies together, rigged everything together, saw the things that didn't work, figured out why they didn't work, put them back together again, and got everything going.
And while that was happening, we were also, Lola and I were working with Mr. Shipley's 6th grade class at CSA Lincoln, prototyping new games that could be played and how they might be applied to the installation, both the material effects and the formal organization of it. And it was really exciting to see the students develop in a team-based collaboration a set of ideas on revisiting things like Capture the Flag or Simon Says or these other kinds of maybe classic games, but giving them a kind of upgrade for public space until eventually these 3 games emerged as the kind of go-to versions that would be played out on the final version. Kaleidoscope, Capture the Light, and Invisible Poses were the ones that went forward.
The other reality of the project was a moment of realizing we were over budget. We had a very large site on in front of the parking lot on 8th Street in Columbus. And so we had wanted to fill it as much as possible and have impact. And then there was a moment of realizing that the fabrication costs, the material costs, the electronic costs were outside of the budget. And so we went through a process of shrinking it and trying to figure out where we could cut while still retaining the spatial integrity and the maze-like qualities, and realizing that actually it wanted actually room to breathe and to allow people to move through it. And then we, about a month or two before the opening date, worked with a local fabricator, Ignition Arts, that are based in Columbus. And we started to resolve some of the smaller details of fabrication and assembly, the turning radius of, or bending radius of the frames, how to simply and effectively attach the film to the frames. And so these are some of the mock-ups they were making in their shop.
And just before some of those frames started coming off of the trailer delivered from Indianapolis, we spent a couple days preparing the ground by digging trenches and laying all of the electronics and electrical work safely underground to protect from weather and to protect from tampering, and to really kind of embed them so they wouldn't also be trip hazards. It was really exciting. As each frame would come off, we'd get to sort of anchor it into position with respect to its electrical foundations until you arrive at this final work here on site, maybe just the morning of opening day. And a view from above, this maybe harkens back to the image that Zach showed of the electrical layout. And here you can also see some of what Kieran was talking about in terms of the curvatures and the kind of spaces it would create. I mean, of course, this is kind of an impossible view in the project, but actually with the parking structure right next door, it's actually is a view you can get from above, which maybe is a good way to point out where somebody might be hiding in this sequence. So maybe this is a bit of a cheat code in the system. And here is the on the final day, really on opening day, you get to see a view of many of the sixth graders and some other younger kids coming out to play some of the games that had been chosen for the installation. And we remarked, or Kieran remarked maybe first, at how close the final effects playing out on the space looked to the render. So we surprisingly were not far off in guessing what it might be like.
One of our sort of hopes was that the project would work at a few different scales. So sort of hiding and appearing and disappearing at the scale of the module, but also, and the sort of maze configuration, but also at the material scale. So as Kieran was showing, you know, someone coming close comes into view, and as they step back, sort of disappear or get distorted. And the other interesting surprise was how the material took rain, or in this case, it was morning dew. And so unanticipated material effects happening by through climate. And the last sort of interest that, and one of the reasons we spent so much time developing the lighting and the electrical and the coding, was a longstanding interest in how public space works by day and by night, and also across seasons. This is up from summer to November. And so it was important for us to have a public art installation that would be different by night, that would continue to be a sort of attraction and draw people in. So this is a view of it at night.
Yeah, and it was really meant to be a sort of like a machine mirror, where the sensor would respond to your proximity by either dimming upward or dimming downward. And so Zach and Kieran worked out alternating codes depending upon the day of the week. So you'd get a different experience with each visit. And yeah, here's some of the final images showing some of the effects at night. This is actually just a photograph that someone sent us on Instagram. So it's really interesting to see how both the orange frames and the lights themselves are playing out. And this is something we could never simulate in the black box, even where Zach is right now. And we would never be able to simulate on the computer either. These are just some wonderful sort of effects that come out just from some of the early testing. We got some interesting effects that came from the ridging, but not knowing what it might actually do on site. So that was a sort of happy, again, unintentional outcome of the work. So yeah, that's some of the outtakes and behind the scenes we gathered for you today in this abbreviated presentation. And this is the amazing team that made it happen. So thanks for joining us.
Take care.
See you next time.